Welcome to the Greg Farricielli podcast. We are brokers and investors working heavily in the real estate game and have met extraordinary people along the way who are doing amazing things to help their peers and their communities grow. We are excited to give you revolutionary ways to live your best life. And today's special guest is Qui Daugherty.
Good job. That's it.
Yes! Perfect. All right. This doesn't happen all the time when I get the name right the first time. She has been, up to a few years ago, she was doing dance and stuff to help these kids and mentor them. And she was an entrepreneur, and she decided to get a real estate license 2 years ago. And we actually knew each other for a while and didn't really know it. Long story short, I had a property under contract that I was assigning, and the person that bought the property was going to take the house, and he's working with a program that he does at church, and then he was going to appoint someone this house that he taught how to do whatever it is. And then a couple years later, I built 4 houses next to the property over there. And then we finally got connected when you got into the real estate and it just started to spiral from there. And I'm, ecstatic of the situation that you got to be a part of. Tell me a little bit about the program and how this whole thing came about, like the very first came about.
Gotcha. Well, looking back on, I think it's about 5 to 6 years ago, maybe, time flies now. I made a post, basically on my personal Instagram saying, because at the time I was still a dance studio owner. So I made a post, I don't even do like affirmations and manifestations, right? And so I just made a post saying, I want to look for a building, I want to own a studio, X, Y, and Z. And so someone responded to that particular post saying, what's the square foot? What's this? What you're looking for? And I was like, no, I'm not ready. I'm just putting in the atmosphere. And it's like, no, but what area? What's this? And asked me like all these specific questions. And I was like, no, I'm not ready. I'm just putting it in the atmosphere. And then the final response was like, I think I will have someone that's pretty awesome for you to meet that they can kind of help you with your goal. And so once we had a brief conversation, she introduced me. She pretty much gave me this intro of the person. Like, this person is, really great in Nashville, doing amazing things, very successful in commercial, very this. And the way that this person was described to me was almost like intimidating, to say the least, right? Like, dress this way and do this and do this. And so once we got there, this, hour lunch turned into about 3 hours, to the point we were talking so much that the individual that introduced us ended up having to leave, and me and my now mentor ended up just talking for at least 3.5 hours, maybe even longer, where he would ask me a lot of my goals and what things I was working on. And he was like, oh my God, you are such an ambitious young lady, and I'm so proud of you. And so from there, he just took me under his wing. He has shown me so much in regards to like real estate. And so that's kind of how we were introduced initially.
Right. So basically you put out a Facebook post, and somebody responded to your post and said, oh my God, you've got to know this guy. And then you got connected, had lunch. So was this lunch just like for you to meet him, or was he doing a class, or what was that?
It was just to meet. And the idea was to sort of like pitch like, hey, here's someone that may be awesome. Cause I didn't know like the backstory of this guy whatsoever. So it was just kind of to pitch that out there, like, hey, meet this young lady. She's amazing. And then we just started talking, and we never really got to discuss the goals of the dance studio whatsoever. He was just more intrigued about like my ambition, the story, my backstory as far as my background, my growing up here in Nashville, and all the obstacles that I have sort of overcome. And
that's a great place to kind of unpack a little bit. I mean, so tell us about that background.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm Nashville native. So I grew up here in Nashville. Majority of my life, all the way up until maybe high school, I lived in subsidized housing. So low income projects, whatever the verbiage people wants to use nowadays. And so forever, that's all I knew. I didn't know anything outside of that. I didn't know anything about, as people define as success or wealth or like having a family. That was just so clouded. That was so far-fetched, almost TV. The only idea I had of that was the Cosby Show. And so that's the only idea I have of like, some sort of stability. Right. And
so was this your childhood, or is this more recent?
This was my childhood up until honestly high school. That was like
Okay,
my thought process and what I had been exposed to.
gotcha. So you've
So
had
yeah,
that mindset of you don't really everything's kind of cloudy. You never thought of any of these type of things.
right. No idea whatsoever. Like going to
So,
college or luxury or nice or no gated communities. Like no, that was not happening.
okay, so what changed in high school?
So what changed in high school is I was really good at art my entire life. So I would draw, I could dance, I could rip your yeah. Oh, I could, take your clothes and shred them and make an outfit. I was just really creative with my hands. And so I remember either I was on punishment or something that happened where I was kind of locked in my room. And I remember just starting to draw. And one drawing turned into another where I ended up having 10 of those drawings. And for whatever reason, I decided that I was going to go to college or send this off to a college. So I sent it off to the Art Institute of Atlanta, where I was then awarded a scholarship. So my mom, myself, my sister, and my mom went down to Atlanta, and I just remember seeing like it was the road up into the school. It was like really nice homes, like in Buckhead, if they can give you a visual. So it's like those homes, and just seeing that there were like successful people as TV deemed them, and also seeing that there were successful like Black people. I mean, that was just so far fetched to us, And so I'm like, wow, this is nice. So this is what I can be exposed to. And so once that little tidbit of exposure, I'm like, all right, this is possible. And so that was my first big, pretty much introduction to being exposed to something outside of what was being my norm.
Sure. So that was more or less when you went to college, and so you said you had a free ride. Is that what you said? Or you had a
Well, it was
scholarship?
like it was like a 90% ride. It was
Oh,
like almost everything except for like my rooming. So majority of it was paid for. However, let's see. So this was me graduating high school, going into school. Once I went down again, I was excited. I was like, oh wow, this is possible. But once it got time for me to go, I didn't go. I didn't go. It was foreign. I was scared.
wow.
Again, it was just no one in the history of my family had a college degree. So it was, so it's, and I even kind of speak
Yeah.
about this with a lot of the girls that I mentor. I'm like, yes, things are attainable, but also it's good to have someone that kind of help you process it all and realize that you really can't attain these type of things and being able to accept it. And so I had a hard time with
Sure.
accepting that.
That's a huge point. I'm glad you said that because yes, you could be exposed to everything, but you need somebody to maybe show you what to do or get you over that hump. Maybe it's
Yes.
a mental barrier or it's maybe a skill set you have to learn.
Yeah.
And that's huge just to know that something is possible. So your mind is like thinking of like, okay, so what else is possible? You start
Absolutely.
manifesting all of these amazing things. So you didn't finish college, you said, or you did? You didn't finish.
I did
Okay,
not.
so that brings to now you've got this new mindset. You're like, you know what, I'm not going to go to college. So what was your thought process then, and what did you do?
So from there, it was just survival. So doing what everyone else around me did. You just get you a job, which I will say a lot of my family were like entrepreneurs in a sense. So my grandma was a manicurist my entire life. That's all I seen. My mom did hair. And so everyone's kind of entrepreneurial, but they never really had like a certain level of, I guess, success within that, as may
Sure.
call it. And so I ended up just going to get a nail license. Again, I did that because it was entrepreneur, but also it ties back to art. So I love the art of like the drawing and nail art and things like that. So I did that for about a year and a half. And I'm like, all right, I'm kind of bored with this. Let's move on. Moved on from there and ended up working at T-Mobile in the call center for 8 years.
Okay, wow.
8
Okay,
years.
so you found that job that just kept you going for 8 years. I'm sure you felt pretty comfortable. Now, was there anything like while you're working that job, were there things going on in your minds like, oh, I know I can do more than this, or like what you're working there, and like kind of what was the next step after that?
Good question. Um, Initially, no, I never felt the need for more. Again, this is the norm. Like I said, for
Yeah,
for generational, you work and that's just what you do. And so I never thought
sure.
outside of that. But I will say, looking at the last 6 to 8 months of me working in T-Mobile, I ended up I had my daughter in 2008. So I'm gonna say maybe 2000. maybe in 2008, right when I had her, certain people would just plant certain seeds in me that I didn't know at that time. But it was like, oh my, you're so talented. I love the way that you carry yourself. Oh, you made that painting. Oh, that's amazing. You're so skilled. Look at the way you dress. Look at the way you carry yourself. And so they was like, I can just see you do so much more. So obviously, oftentimes people see way more in us than we see in ourselves. So I didn't see that. I'm like, okay, this is just, this skill is innate to me. You're right.
Yeah.
And so they were planting all these seeds.
That's
Yes.
huge,
And
and you're starting to feel better about yourself, and you're like, well, I actually can do more. And that's goes,
yeah.
it's like, it's good that you had those people that were actually,
Mhm.
you had great people in your life that are encouraging you. And a lot of times I hear of people like, well, I don't have that person, or they don't have
Mhm.
that. And what I tell
Right.
the people is, you just got to have to tell it to yourself.
I
You
agree. Yeah.
you have to somehow dig a little bit into you and be able to pull those things out of yourself, because, and I'm going to
Mhm.
say the reason is because you had people talking to you all day long. A lot of
Mhm.
people also probably do, but you chose to bring it in and
Mhm.
be receptive and receive it, and you have to be open to that. There's a lot of people that are not
Absolutely.
really open to that, and they need to, if they think that, they need to open themselves up to it if they don't have that. And
Absolutely.
and know that it's for everyone. It's possible for every single person. And
Yeah.
your limits and your mind is where that's going to cap out or blow up. So
Totally agree.
yeah, you've had some amazing people in your life. People love you. You've got a great support system. They're encouraging you to go to way. So I guess the next thing that I'd be interested in is like, so that last 6 to 8 months, was there what was the transition after that, when you're feeling like, look, I can do something else, and then maybe you put your notice in. It's like, how did that play out?
Yes.
The reason
So
why,
what happened there?
and remember, think about this. The reason why I ask is because this is probably the point where most people are in their situation. They're at
Right.
the
I
job,
agree.
they're here, and maybe they do have family and stuff. Like, so what went over you to actually be able to make that step?
It was a few months, either I'm gonna say a few months after my daughter's first birthday. So her first birthday was really huge. I mean, I went all out. I made outfits. The way I decorated, the way I styled her, all of this. It was like a big thing. And I remember receiving so many compliments after that. Again, just saying how talented I was as far as choosing a location and the decor. You just have an eye.
Yeah.
You just have an amazing eye for design, right? And so I just kept that on my mind for a very long time. And so I remember just keep contemplating, okay, what does this mean? Like, why do I keep getting told this? Or am I really good at people blowing smoke? And so the last time I went in, because again, I worked in a call center. So the very last time that I went in, I remember putting my headset on, and before a call comes in, it makes this loud beep sound, like beep, and then a person comes in and they ready to yell at you about some sort of feature on the phone. Right. So the call came in, it's like beep, and then that's exactly what happened. It's like my phone's not working, my bill is high, my da 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 da. And I was like, yep, not happening. This is it. And I literally pressed in, took my headset off. Again, I've been there 8 years. I remember being a top performer. Like, I had so many accolades I acquired there. And I remember walking to my then supervisor, like, I can't do this anymore. I'm leaving. And she was like, what? And I'm like, this is it. Like, I just hung up on the call. Like, I just can't do it anymore. And I remember we're kind of like have a team setting. So you have your supervisor, then a supervisor over that person. You kind of sit in this little pod. And I remember both of them saying like, hey, off the record, you are so much more than this. Like, you are talented. I can see you being like so much farther than this. Whatever your goals are, go chase them. Like, we support you, like whatever. And
So was
so
this,
you hear,
I quit now, or I'm putting in my notice?
oh no, there was no notice.
I
There
love
was
it.
no notice.
So
That was the notice.
I mean, yes, you had these people telling you, but like, what set you over the edge? Like, what just where you're just like, I can't do this anymore?
I guess it was the battle of it was definitely an internal battle, but it was like, all right, I'm talented, I'm amazing, says all these people. But here I am, and I know, not saying I'm not judging anyone who works for calls or anything like that, but here I am sitting here being screamed at and hollered about a freaking cell phone. Like, come on now. Like, no, I do have skills, I'm amazing, but here I am. And so it was just like this constant like battle. And that one beep just sent me over. And I'm like, this is it. And so I quit with no plan. And you hear a lot of people say this, like, I had no plan, or I moved across the country with $500, whatever. Which I don't encourage it, but it depends on like what's in you. And for me, I've always been an ambitious person. I've always been an entrepreneur. Like, thinking back over my childhood, I would draw names and draw things and charge people $1 and they would pay me. Or, hey, can you rip my jeans up and do this? Yeah, give me $10. And so I was able to survive. And so I remember spending, after I quit that day, it was like on a Tuesday, I went the entire week thinking, all right, this is great, life's great, paycheck came in. The next week I'm like, all right, so what we're about to do? Keep in mind I had like a 2-year-old or a 1.5-year-old kind of looking at me, and I'm like, all right, what are we doing? And I remember someone told me, like, you're so good with art and design, you should maybe look into it. And that's what I did. I went and signed up for school. And that entire time I was there, I just pretty much started a business, and I didn't even know that's what I was doing. So I was doing interior styling, I was making clothing, I was just doing everything under the sun. And I was able to sustain that for the entire time that I was in school.
You found business and people that were wanting to work with you.
Yes.
So you're like
Yes.
learning, and they're like, oh my God, I have this. You should come do this for me.
Yes, that's
I mean,
exactly what happened.
it's like you grew out of yourself at that one point, and you just
Absolutely.
like that, like you were talking to your boss, but you're almost talking to yourself, like a battle with yourself. Like, I'm done with you, but
Yes.
because I've grown to a different, like you become a different person.
Right.
And now you have this new self, and you're like, cool, what do I do now? So now you've got some clients. You're in school. Did you finish that school? I'm assuming.
I did. I obtained that degree, and life was at that point like, oh, life's great. All right, so what's now? And then I remember having a day where I kind of reflected back on everything, and I'm like, you were able to completely quit your job. That stability, your health insurance, that everything as far as for you and your daughter. Quit that job, get a degree, and maintain your life the entire time. Like, what does this mean to you? I remember just like kind of like just thinking back on that, and I'm like, it was great. I was entrepreneurial, but I feel like I didn't learn the business aspects of it. And I didn't have, at that point in my time, I didn't have any resources. I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have anyone that I could reach out to say, hey, how can I build a business from this, or build something that I can like sustain and maintain, something that kind of outlive me. And at that point in my life, I didn't have that. And so the only other option, now that my mindset has shifted, and I was also, open to trying new things, I decided, all right, let's go and get a business degree. So I remember I enrolled in Belmont,
Wow.
and yes, so that's what I did. So I need, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm starting a business. I need to know the foundations of running a business, and so that's when I enrolled in Belmont.
So, and that's a wonderful story. Well, there's like a common denominator in everything that you've been saying this whole time.
Mhm.
And correct me if I'm wrong, this is just my observation from the last 30 minutes, but like, you follow your intuition.
Yes.
When you hear that nudge, you explore it, and you're
Mhm.
like, okay, maybe spiritual people pray about it, and you're just like, why am I here? Like,
Yes.
why is this in my mind right now? And
Absolutely.
you've moved and you've followed that, and look, you've become abundant because of that. And I think that's a great tip for everyone. I mean, everybody has those voices inside them, and maybe they're good or bad, but even if they are good or bad, I mean, you definitely need to explore them to be able to
Mhm.
either clear out some negative energy to be able to move to that next level, or just move to the next level.
Absolutely. I agree.
I think that's wonderful. So, okay, so you graduated. That's awesome. How long ago was that?
So I attended Belmont. I did graduate. I graduated in 2018.
Oh,
But it was about halfway into Belmont that I discovered, all right, that's when like resources started falling from the sky, mentors start falling from the sky, and then that's when I was introduced to our friend that's now my mentor. And I was right in the middle of me attending school when that happened.
right. So you put the post out. So now we're back to the post. It's like, cool.
Yes.
You're at Belmont. You put the post out. You meet this person. You guys have a great connection. We already knew. We had lunch, and it was awesome. So
Yes.
how did that now come to be? And I'd love to talk about what you learned too.
Yeah. Again, I remember sharing during that conversation, being very vulnerable, being very
Right.
transparent, sharing my story of I shared this far with you. And it was almost like he was saying, like, you have everything that you need in order to be successful. But I remember him asking me, like, what can I do to help you? Like, he was so amazed by my story and how I overcame so much. He's like, how can I help you? And I'm like, I just need a mentor. I need someone to help me when I have these ideas to kind of process it and like what's next. And so I share with him, I'm like I said, I feel like I lack resources at that opportunity at that particular time. So I'm like, I just need a mentor. He was like, that's it. Oh, I got you. I got you. And so he's like, I got you. So he started calling me Soaring Eagle. He's like, I can just see you soaring. And so we still, like, who are 5, 6, I can't remember at this point, years later, we still had that same relationship. But once I told him what I needed, and I think that's a lesson in itself, is just putting down your pride and just asking for what you need. And here's a total stranger I meet for the first time. I was like, this is what I need, And so from there, we would meet up. I would attend some of the classes that he held on Saturdays, but it was mainly just, it started like an amazing friendship. We would just go have lunch and we would just talk about like house hacking. And he would show me certain developments that he had. And I mean, he would just talk about everything as far as his life and things that he had overcame. And I would share with him, and I would share some of my goals. And it was just, we just built a friendship more than a mentorship. But within that, I was learning so much.
And that's a beautiful thing. And because you kind of think about it, it's like, okay, so you come from a different area of your life in town, and so does he. But what brings you together is like the meeting of the one thing, the minds. Like you
Mhm.
are ambitious and wanted to learn, and he wanted to teach. And
Yes.
he wanted to teach to somebody who wanted to learn.
Yes.
So you were receptive to putting your pride down, like you said, and be able to
Mhm.
like listen and take in what he's saying and actually put it to use. I mean,
Absolutely. Yes.
and that's huge. That I bet you there's a lot of people out there that have those relationships. If they were to just maybe reach out a little bit more, I think that's a
Mhm.
huge point. Just to ask, like literally, just to ask for business, ask for the listing, ask for this, ask for the deal.
Yes.
But, sometimes you
Ask for it.
ask, and you don't know unless you
Yeah.
ask. I think
Right.
it's awesome, awesome.
Another big thing I learned within the relationship very early on is, and I'm glad I learned it early on versus later, is I learned that people that are truly successful, and it's success is not always attached to a dollar sign, even though this person is pretty cool, well off financially, but success within their space, you don't mind helping, you don't mind connecting. And there were several times, again, we would eat 2 or 3 times a week, or just however many times we would meet throughout the month. And there would be someone would come in, they're like, hey, he was like, you need to meet her. She is awesome. This person does this. And they would connect. And the next thing, I just had like just so many people on different levels, and so many like people in different positions around Nashville that were doing amazing things. I mean, some guy came up while we were speaking. He was like, all right, yep, just made $800,000 while we're sitting here having lunch. That was mind blowing to me. Like,
Yeah,
wow. And they just organically wanted to help me. And
yeah.
all I wanted was the knowledge. I didn't ask for anything else. I just wanted the knowledge. And I was, so grateful for that. And so I'm glad I learned that when you're truly successful within your space, and success, again, is not tied to a dollar amount, you don't mind helping other people.
Right. And I mean, the more we're both real estate agents, and the biggest mindset that I've given up the first year is the mindset that I'm in competition with people. I am not in competition with anyone. When you're
I
not in
agree.
competition with anyone, you'll learn from anyone and you'll give to anyone. The more that
Absolutely.
you give to your peers who are your direct competition, you'll be miles of successful abundance by just sharing whatever
Yeah,
if you feel like that it's your direct competition, it's really not. Your direct competition is you yourself, is your
that's
only
it.
direct competition, hands down.
That's
So
it.
I think I wish people would develop more of the mindset you have of abundance. It's like, look, we're real estate agents, but it doesn't matter. If we both
Yes,
land up at a listing together, we're not going to fight over it. We're going to go in there as a team.
absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about now, is there a strategy that we should share along with everyone that you did with this person that you would like to pass on?
Oh, absolutely. And so it was a few things, it's a few little gems I feel like that that was dropped, or seeds were planted. But one thing that really stuck out to me as a person of color or black or whatever we want to use the verbiage is, I remember we went down a certain street, and I remember like him showing me like different developments that he was working on. And he was like, I just want this street to go back to what it was years ago, when it was historically black and black businesses and X, Y, and Z. And I was just so intrigued by that. And I remember him sharing that his biggest obstacle he feels is that he wanted more for us than we wanted for ourselves. And so I'm like, wow, that is so true. So I remember planning that. I was like, nope, I'm going to change that narrative, right? And so anything that he shared from me from that point on, I just really soaked it in and tried to apply it. And so when he showed me his first or second home that he had purchased and showed me how he had, lived in one area and rented out the other, and how that helped him um,
Yeah.
kickstart things. And so, initially your mindset was like, I don't want to live next to me or under me or over me. Like, ah. And then I just really had to like take a step back and really listen to it. I'm like, so you're telling me I can live right here comfortably and then just rent out part of it. They pay my mortgage. What I'm supposed to pay in mortgage, I just, save that and then I buy another one. Then we just keep doing this. I could do this. If you're telling me this is life changing, you're telling me from someone that has completely changed their mindset from a surviving mindset to now wanting to thrive, going from poverty to, if that's the way that I can change the narrative for my generation, for my whole total just history of family,
Yeah.
sign me up. Sign me up. And so that's pretty much like what I was introduced to. And I remember like, other family members like, what, you gonna have someone living in part of it? And now like my friends and I'm just like raving about it, like, yes, this is a way for us to get ahead. This is a way for us to get ahead. This is not permanent. So you don't have to love it, but knowing that you're going to get farther ahead, sign me up.
Dude, I'm glad you said that, because you went through a little bit of sacrifice. You didn't love it. And that's
absolutely
the thing. Like, when you're going through these changes and you're trying to get yourself to a better place, you're not going to always like it.
Oh, not at all.
And
it's not going to feel good.
Right. You have to want to be uncomfortable. Whether it's your living situation or financially or just whatever you're doing. I mean, if you're feeling uncomfortable, it's probably telling you that you're on the right track and not on the wrong track. Because if you're just always comfortable and you're not growing, then you're not going to gain these new mindsets.
I agree.
So I think that's huge. So you had these houses. So kind of like were you renting out a room and then saving that money? Was that the basis of it?
Well, we're able to I totally renovate the top to where it has a kitchenette. So it's like a total like 1-bedroom apartment, and rent that out, and it covers the mortgage for the downstairs living area.
Okay, so you basically transformed part of your home. You added value to it somehow by adding a kitchenette for these people. And then I'm assuming your house already had this, it was kind of already set up with a second entrance. So
correct.
So,
no, there was no second entrance. We had to add a door and some steps. So it goes like right up there. Yeah, we had to add that.
And those people thinking to themselves like now, like, well, how am I going to do that to my house and do that? Well, I mean, there are definitely ways that you can do that, especially if you have home, you can pull equity line of credit. You can partner with people. There's multiple ways to do something like that. So you added basically a loft to your house. So you rented that out. So I'm assuming a long-term 10 to 12 months, or maybe Airbnb or whatever, however that works.
Yes, that's correct.
And then
life is like, it took some initial adjustment, because obviously you know that someone else is staying there. So occasionally you can hear the person. But again, it's all about that sacrifice that we mentioned, and knowing my bigger plan for this all. And so I had to adjust my daughter, because she was like, wait, why is this happening? But I'm like, hey, do you like going out to eat all the time and traveling and living life? Hey.
This is the part you don't like.
Yes.
So basically what I'm hearing is you took that rent money. I'm assuming you paid part or all of your mortgage with that. And then you're saying you just started a bank account basically. And then how long did it take for you to save enough to actually maybe move this person out or go to the next step?
They're still there. It hasn't happened yet. And so since I'm in real estate, and I'm just now approaching my 2 years of this process, whatever it's in regards to taxes. So I won't be able to purchase until this time next year. And so I've just created this nest egg of, all right, here's what I think my monthly expenses will be. Most people say 6 to 8 months. My goal was 12 months. I was able to save more than that. And I'm like, all right, let's go to the next egg. And so again, it's all about that sacrifice. Something else that I sacrificed is, once I knew I was going to get into real estate, you just hear all these expenses that come along with it. so right before I started school, I got rid of everything that was unnecessary. Any unnecessary expense, I don't care if it's a membership, I don't care if it's $5. That $5 can go somewhere else. That BMW that I was driving that was $100 for a freaking light, headlight. You gotta go. You gotta go. And so I got rid of all of that. And again, for the outside looking in, they're like, did she lose it all? Is she going broke? Is she this? But I knew my plan. I don't need for anyone else to know my plan as long as I know my plan. I don't owe anyone else an explanation. So I've gone through a long period of sacrifice to get ahead.
Yeah, I mean, and you had a plan, which is wonderful. But a lot of people have plans, but they don't have the discipline to stick to the plan and go through the uncomfortable part of it. Like you probably weren't going out to eat. You got rid of your BMW, you got rid of a lot of the stuff. So you kind of slimmed yourself down to the very minimum to take care of you and your family. And you're like, cool, I'm going to bank the rest because in a few years, I'm going to be able to do this. So what's the next plan for you after, maybe 5 years down the road or a year and a half down the road, once you're able to buy some property? What is your plan with that?
So my plan, I have two plans. So I definitely want to buy another house, do the same exact thing. I would love to also buy my daughter her first property and allow it to be an investment property and give that to her as a gift. And so just also another plan that I have is just to be that visual representation for my daughter, for my family, for people to come from like low income homes. That I think it's just so important to have that visual to know that it's attainable, and so just to be able to do all this within the eyes, most people's like, oh, here's a sneak peek, or they just show us a picture of the finished product. Like I want to take people on this journey and just be real transparent, be real organic, be authentic. And because I'm not a pretentious person at all. My story is my story. And I'm not shying away from it. So just let you know that it's able. So definitely want to do the house hacking again. Probably do it a few more times, honestly.
Yeah.
And like I said, buy my daughter her first investment property as well.
I mean, that's amazing right there, just to be able to buy your child their first investment property, because you're going to manage them. By the time they're old enough to know what to do with it, they could take that legacy and, make it grow for sure. So for our audience, I mean, is there any way that anybody out here could add value to you? Anything that you're looking for, any partnerships you're looking for, any type of people? What could our network do to help you get to the next step?
That's amazing. Within real estate, I feel that it's definitely a lot of learning. I mean, it's everyday learning. We can both agree every transaction is different. People are different. My biggest struggle right now has been just creating that ideal day, honestly. And so I'm still kind of working on that. And so that's really the biggest area of opportunity for me, is just figuring out my ideal day. In addition to that, I don't know, anyone who just wants to meet and just offer knowledge. Again, like that's it. Like I don't consider myself a professional or expert, but I consider myself an expert student, and I'm going to do great at it.
The expert students are the ones that truly know what they're doing more than anything else. I mean, those are because they're true to what they're doing, and people want to work with them because they have built themselves up and they're like, hey, this is how we did it and this is how we're going to do it.
Yes.
So yeah, if anybody out there wants to, reach out to her, how can we find you?
Well, on Instagram, I'm Echelon Residence. So it's ECHELON Residence, RESIDENCE. So that's Instagram. It's on Facebook. I'm Qui Daugherty, which my name is tagged there. Either way, you can find me. I'm available. I'm out here in these Nashville streets.
That's awesome. Well, thanks again. I mean, you're going to reach and you're going to talk to a lot of people with this. So I can't wait for people to talk to you and hopefully reach out to you and be like, how could I do the next? I'm sure you wouldn't mind talking to those people as well.
Oh, absolutely.
So yeah, thanks again for being on our podcast, The Average People Doing Extraordinary Things. You're definitely doing some absolutely extraordinary things, and I love watching you grow. Obviously, you know how to reach out to me anytime, but I'm going to end this and just say thank you again, and I look forward to doing this again and talking to you soon.
And thank you so much, Gray. I really appreciate it.